Kroll,
Here.
Rosendahl,
Here.
Carberry Montgomery, Carberry Montgomery,
Here.
perfect. Wanted to make sure we could hear each other. Perfect, thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Kroll,
Second.
second by Cacciatore. Discussion, please vote. That passes. Item 3 is presentations. We actually have 2 presentations. One's only on the agenda, but I will note the other one in here in a second. First is a proclamation for 2025 Constitution Week. Whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodies the enduring principles of limited government and the rule of law. And whereas September 17, 2025 marks the 238th anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas Public Law 915, signed by President Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1956, authorizes the President to issue a proclamation each year designated September 17 through 23 as Constitution Week. Now therefore, I, Robert Andoy, Mayor of the City of Urbandale, do hereby proclaim September 17 through 23, 2025 as Constitution Week in Urbandale, and urge our residents to reflect on the enduring ideals set forth by the framers of the Constitution, and to renew our commitment to protect the freedoms it guarantees. I'm going to sign this, and we have a couple of representatives from the DAR here that suggested this for us. I'm going to ask them forward, and we'll get a picture of this. No worries, okay. All right. Thank you. My competent Mayor Pro Tem neglected to point out that I skipped right over the Pledge of Allegiance and the character account statement. So would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Urbandale is a national leader in character counts, endeavoring at all times to promote and model the principles of trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. In conducting tonight's meeting, we expect that all participants will act in a respectful manner consistent with these principles. All right, moving back on track to presentations. We have a presentation from our Polk County Supervisor, Jill Altringer. So Jill, the floor is yours. Please come on up.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. So Polk County, we like to say leading the way, and here you guys are voting on your screen in front of you. So we just got iPads, you're steps above us. I want to take a moment. Today is the only day I'll have this visual aid, but since I have been your supervisor for 257 days, I didn't know if you were quite familiar with my district, which extends from Urbandale, Sheldon, all the way over to Mitchellville. And I say that because even in Polk County, we have a lot of variety. In my district, I have a lot of variety.
Jill, can I just ask one question though? Why didn't you get the yellow color for that?
I know, right? I have said that. Trust me, that has come up before. So in our 257 days, we've actually taken many positive approaches, outlooks, and made some changes. If you remember correctly, I ran on fiscal responsibility, transparency, and accountability. I'm on TV right now, correct?
Yes,
Okay. As of
on YouTube.
after our January 2nd meeting, we are now on TV. So some of the things that we've been updating, trying to bring the board meetings to the people and making sure that people can access us easily. So just like your your church streaming service, if you tune into our board meeting at 9:35, you just hit a button and you stream right in. If you miss us and you can't hit us until later after dinner, you go to the archives. You can find us. We've also revamped our agenda. Small things, but I think big when it comes to the transparency and accountability. Again, on January 2nd, when I was sworn in, the agenda, you would get it. And if you wanted any information on the items on the agenda, you'd have to go to the auditor's office in order to retrieve the information. Now it's all hyperlinked. You can hyperlink straight to our contracts, resolutions, any of the information we have there. We took that same process and we moved it up to our board staff meetings. Again, live streamed, available and archived, hyperlinked, and we're bringing more board staff meetings, sometimes way more board staff meetings. But that's kind of like our workshops that we're used to with city council, where we bring department heads and groups into us, so we learn more about the community and we have a chance as a whole group to ask questions, get more information, and decide how we want to proceed. Go to fiscal responsibility. It was the first time that we started looking at the budget and trying to figure out how we were going to lower the tax levy. We did make a start. We lowered it by 10 cents. To our knowledge, well, we know it hasn't happened for over 16 years. To our knowledge, it was quite a bit longer than that. We've implemented RFPs. What we found is that there were a lot of contracts that were done on handshake deals or hadn't been reviewed for 20 to 25 years. We said, wait a minute, people might be doing a great job, or might need to revisit it, but we won't know if we don't put that process out. So we've implemented the RFPs, and we've been working through what contracts and how we want to do that process. We revamped the grant process. So I did not realize that the grant program was as big as it was when I came in. It came into a very busy time. We had the budget, we had the grants. We went through it as it was previously set up, but through the process, we were like, we think we can make some efficiencies here. So we had, I think, a 2-hour workshop or board staff that we sat down and talked about what do we want this to look like, because this is really a great partnership that we have with our different communities. And for new people, it's a great way to have boots on the ground so that we can learn what's going on in the communities, what the issues are, the challenges, and help to be part of the solution. We have on our, I believe, on our next Tuesday agenda, we will have a strategic plan resolution that we'll be signing. There has not been a strategic plan in Polk County for over 29 years. I ran on a strategic plan. I think it's very important in order to set the vision, in order to set the budget priorities. So I'm very excited about that. I was going to say we have it on the agenda, but I guess I don't know that for sure until Thursday, right? We've also gone to a very citizen-centric approach. How can we get the citizens to our services easier? One good example of that is the election office. I don't know if anyone had a chance to tour it or saw the media on that. But there were the long lines that they were showing, that people were standing out there for 4 hours in November in like cold and rainy weather. Not only did we want to help our citizens, but we wanted to help our employees. They had a building that needed a lot of repair, and so we moved it over to River Place. We revamped a space. Now people have dedicated parking. They can walk inside, stay out of the elements, go in and vote, and we can move through people faster because we have more space. We can put up more voting booths. We've also looked at collaboration. Where can we cooperate with people? One of the big examples of that is the medical examiner's office. By contracting with the state, which now we are 98 counties that do that, we were able to save about $37 million off the top because we didn't have to build a new facility, ongoing of about $1 million a year, allowing us to be fiscally responsible. Established a position review committee looking at those vacant FTEs. I'm sure that you guys have already taken that process. That was something that wasn't in place. We've changed different carriers, again, back to the RFP process, looking at what makes the most sense for the county. Implemented a kiosk in the jail for people reentering the community. We're also updating our county policies, again, something that hasn't happened for a decade or two. We're looking at sexual harassment, workplace violence. We're trying to make sure that our employees feel safe in our workplace. And, as Amy and I have talked about in different things, we've distributed the rest of our EAR2 money. We know that homeless is an issue, and we're trying to make sure that we are addressing it by bringing more units out there to the people. So those are some of the big things that I think that I wanted to make sure our community knows that we've been working on. I'm willing to take questions, wondering if there's anything you want more elaboration on, or please, somebody. It's almost harder when it's a really quiet group, okay?
Well, thanks, Jill. Are there any questions from the council?
Yeah, I had a question about, you mentioned a kiosk at the jail for reentry. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
That would be something that I was honestly hoping that you would not ask me more about. Because when I was in the meeting today, when they were explaining it, my schedule was getting all moved around.
Okay.
I will get you more information on that, though.
Thank you.
Any of the other items, though? Bridget?
Hi,
Yes.
Jill. It's Bridget. I'm coming to you from Boston from a conference, but
I'm kind of jealous, but
I just
okay.
want to thank you. I just wanted to thank you for coming, and I hope you continue to come and bring us updates from Polk County. I know our collaboration is very important for both of us, both the city of Urbandale and Polk County. So I look forward to continuing to partner with you.
Hey, I appreciate that, and absolutely, I think it's that collaboration, that cooperation within both my district as well as the county that makes us a successful central Iowa community.
With the old election office, what's the plan for the building and site there? Or is
At-
there kind of a process for that?
The plan that we're currently looking at is we're having it appraised, and we're looking at removing ourselves from ownership of that property.
Okay.
There are some structural concerns that, and we don't need that space. We have some other great facilities. Nothing else? All right, Joe, I will get you information on that kiosk. Like, seriously, anything else on my list I had, but.
What
All
else
right.
is on your list?
What?
What else is on your list?
Everything I just went through. Like, anything else on that list. It was just the kiosk. As soon as I said it, I'm like, that's the one I know the least about. All right, thank you for your.
Jill, thanks so much for being here, and we do appreciate the updates, and we look forward to having you here on a regular basis, and we look forward to hearing from you, so.
Well, I think everyone at the table has my contact information, and any of the citizens, I mean, be happy if you go ahead, give that to them as well. Jill.Altern@polkcounty.gov, polkcountyiowa.gov. I can only be better if you guys reach out and let me know what your needs are. So I do appreciate the time today. Thank you very much. I will not bring my map visual again, but it is an impressive green space.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
Next time we impressive yellow space, right? Yeah, all right. Thanks, Jill. All right, we move on then to citizens forum. This is the opportunity to address the council on something that's not a public hearing or otherwise on tonight's regular agenda. Is there anyone who wants to address the council? Yeah, yes, ma'am. If you could please come up and give your name and address to the podium. You have 5 minutes. Okay.
How's everybody doing? I'm sorry, I'm from Texas, so I still talk with my slang. I drive the school buses
Please give your name and
I'm
address for
sorry,
the record.
Loris
Bill.
Sundin.
Okay.
I drive the school buses for Urbandale. Personally, I drive Bus 5 as a sped route or a special ed bus. We're having problems at the middle school in particular. And I'm sorry this is so small, but the visual is when you're pulling into, the church is on one side, and then of course you have the vacant lot to the park on the other. When the buses are pulling into our designated area, the parents, there are 6 signs that say no student drop off or pickup and no stopping. And yet they're impeding traffic, they are blocking the driveway. We almost have to bully our way out to get out. And I have personally had my derriere chewed because I've been dropping off students late because I have to wait. My boss apparently said that this was the paper that somebody had issued her saying that it was okayed to park in that area, but then I'm gonna pull up the question, why do you have 6 signs out there saying otherwise? It's just the area, you have the crosswalk, so you have a crossing guard there. I think if we had an officer or somebody out there that would play 4-way stop, if you would, just to let us get out, it would be majorly helpful. Otherwise, it's extremely tedious. They just will not let you out, period. The other thing was not so much the bike lane in itself. I'm all for it, but if cars are allowed to park in it, then it just distinguishes the whole bike lane, especially on 70th Street. I live on Townsend Street, right across from New Hope. If you go down 70th Street, they have ample parking in their driveways, but cars are parked in the bike lane. So I'm watching the kids and other people on bikes. They'll ride for 2 seconds, they have to get off with their bike on the sidewalk or just remain on the sidewalk. So it's almost defeating the purpose of said bike lane. When you get up to 86 in Aurora at the light, it'll turn into a turning lane for your car, but the bike lane ends. Now you got another problem with the person having to take the bike to the sidewalk when, in my opinion, a lane should have been built when the road was being built so they could exit stage right, if you will. The last thing is, I don't know what to do about it. I've actually called on it. At 72nd and Horton, there's 3 cars on a very colorful house. I think it's pink and blue, but there's major profanity that's been spray painted on there since last year, facing the street. And now my kids, who are reading level, are going home and saying the words that are on the side of the cars to the parents. The parents are getting upset with me, asking where they're hearing this from. So those are the 3 main things that we need help on. Majorly the middle school, or any of the schools, but majorly the middle school, because it is not fun trying to navigate, morning and afternoon. When I leave the school personally, I have to say, bus 5 coming out, can I get a lookout, just so I can leave, which means I get a big bus that sits in the traffic and now hogs illegally lanes so we can exit. And we've witnessed, there's one lady, I'm sorry I did not write her, I have her license plate. She will drop off her kid and U-turn illegally right there in front of the school. We had 2 accidents involving one of our bus drivers last year where he was basically T-boned by somebody, but it's every day. I can watch 4 or 5 every day, morning and afternoon. So we just need some help, if that's possible. And I would love to have this clarified because what she's being told is everything in between these yellow arrows is free for all, but that's where all the signs are at.
I'm not sure what, if you could, can we put
Ma'am?
that, or Nicole, can we get that on the
Yeah.
camera at all?
Right here? I don't know which way is gonna be better, but. Please excuse me. It's gonna be this one right here. I feel like
Can
I'm,
you flip it around the other way, because I think, yeah, it's gonna be up, there we go.
Yeah, there we go. Excellent.
okay. Oh,
Nope.
Sorry.
Right there.
There we go.
Okay, so what we're being told is that everything in between here is where the parents can park. This is your school right here. But if you see my asterisk, that's every sign that is posted saying no student drop-off or pickup. And the only time you're gonna do that is morning and afternoon. What my boss was telling me is that this is allowed, but from what I was understanding is everything behind the A arrow is okay, because you do have your line of people back there picking up. Anything in the front of the B arrows also are okay, because they're already turning in at that point. But this, where the circle's at, is the big problem area, and here is where all your illegal U-turns happen. So I don't know if, but then I wouldn't want you guys out there in the elements, you know what I'm saying, in the rain and the cold, which we already have crossing guard.
Yeah.
I had said something along the lines of, as the buses come in, we're in obviously the correct lane, but as we're going out, if there's a way to maybe put a sensor and get some blue lights or something that flash to let them know that they need to pause for a minute to let us out, is another idea.
I know you spoke with our staff earlier, I think with our
Yes.
police, so if we need to, I mean, obviously this is a very new situation for Aurora right now. We're
Mhm.
working through it, and we knew we'd have maybe some things to work out, so, I mean, thanks for bringing this to our attention, and if we can get, if we can get your contact information.
Absolutely.
We can certainly follow up. It's nothing we can address tonight, obviously, but we can certainly have our staff's constantly reviewing this, and we'll see what we can figure out as far as making
pardon
it as
my-
better as we can, so.
Pardon my ignorance if I forgot, is it Underwood, Chief Underwood?
Yes,
that
Captain
correct?
Underwood.
Okay, Captain. When I was talking to him and I was making the suggestion, he was saying about staffing, which I totally get. But if you guys show up in uniform or car, nobody's gonna do anything. They're all gonna be prim and proper.
Yeah.
If somebody just sits, I don't know if there's any officers that have any kids that go to school there, and on an off day, just sit out there and watch, and they'll see what I'm talking about with no problem.
Yeah.
As long as there's no presence readily noticed, they're gonna do it. The second they see an officer of any kind, they're like, oh, they stop, so, yeah. But yes, I will, do I just
I'll
say
leave
that
it with
loud?
Nicole.
Okay.
Nicole will get it for you, and we appreciate it. You know, with regard to the profanity, that's something that's more of a First Amendment issue that I know that's come up before with some other
Yeah,
some other folks in our
it's
city.
like
but-
somebody had a tiff and
Well,
put it on there, and then they've kind of blocked it off, but
it's difficult for a city to
yeah,
regulate
it's
that.
right
so.
down the street from Olmsted. It's literally next door to it.
So I understand, but that's difficult for us to regulate with
Okay.
First Amendment issues too, so.
Heard. I appreciate the time. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate it. All right, is there anyone else that would like to address the council? I don't believe that there's anybody else in the room, but just checking. All right, we'll move on then to the adoption of the minutes, first from the September 2 meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Rosendahl,
Second?
second by Cacciatore. Discussion, please vote. That passes. And we lose, we only have 3 votes? Oh, well, is there an
I
abstention?
abstained.
Got it. And then from the September 9 lunch and learn.
So moved.
Motion by Kroll,
Second?
second by Cacciatore. Discussion, please vote. That passes. Item 6 is the consent agenda, and there are 13 items for approval.
So
Motion-
moved.
Motion by Cacciatore,
Second.
second by Rosendahl. Discussion, please vote. That passes. Item 7, to establish a public hearing to consider the Urbandale Water Utility Aquifer Storage and Recovery Project Noise Ordinance Waiver. Setting that for October 8. David, answer any questions if there are.
Motion to approve resolution 248-2025.
Motion by Rosendahl,
Second.
second by Kroll. Discussion, please vote.
Thank you.
That passes. We've gotten through our weighty agenda for action, and we'll move on to special topics. And I'm going to turn it over to John Conier to introduce both items. So first, we'll start with item 8.1, that's the Sustainable Urbandale Action Plan. So John?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Nicole, oh, excellent, thank you very much. So tonight is a brief overview of the Sustainable Urbandale Action Plan. If you remember back, I'm gonna go, that's actually, I'm going too fast. Actually, back in January of this year, we had a discussion about how to operationalize the SUAP. And what were the things that we could do to bring the first few and get those moving across the way. Just as an overview, SUAP's main goals are people, renewable energy, net zero energy buildings, and infill development. They are sprinkled over goals A through J and over 70 different action items that the students from Iowa State came up with to achieve those plans' goals. A quick review from our Lunch and Learn. Back in January, we had decided to work on G1. That was the promotion of a single source space for people to come and learn about sustainable actions. That was completed with www.urbandale.org/green. And so that is the one-stop shop. I'll have a snapshot of the website here in a second. Also to work on action item G2, which was native plantings. And so that was worked with community development. And then we had said that we would come back in August. We can pretend it's August, we're in September, to come back with the next actions to look to move forward. So action A2 was completed. This is the urbandale.org green page. A huge thanks to Derek and Anna. They did a heavy lift to get this up, actually used some new software to actually make this website, and I think it turned out absolutely wonderful. So it's a great way for residents and businesses to come to, find out about different ways that they could be sustainable and actions that they could take and put into practice, as well as what we as a city are doing also. So I think it's a great one-stop hub, and that's what it was meant to be. The other item that's still in progress is action item G2. This was to look at the zoning ordinance and come up with a way that we could permit by right native plantings. Community development staff is leading this action item. They have done the research. They've checked with other metro cities, Iowa cities. They've looked at best practices and have worked with professional consultants to come up with what are ways that we could implement or incentivize plantings. Their next steps are to make a recommendation to the P&Z Commission. I heard from Steve Franklin. Hopefully that will be in October, maybe November, and then bring it for council review and then hopefully approval by the end of December. So that is the time plan. It's taken a little bit longer than we had thought initially, but wanted to make sure that we engaged both the consultants as well as others out there to make sure that we had the most information and that we didn't forget something as we did that research piece going forward. So I think the extra time will definitely make a better proposal and make things better. So that comes to where do we go now? We've accomplished one. One is about 3/4 of the way done. So staff really looked at what are different ways that we can leverage what we've just accomplished, and then also making sure that we looked at the SUAP. And the back of it, it had recommendations from Iowa State students. And if you remember back there, they had ranked them based on a ranking criteria from Pennsylvania. So it kind of gave feedback. People had said, these are the things that we thought were most important. They used a scale from 0 to 1. So we had said, let's look at things at 0.5 and higher. And that's where we came with A2 and G2 to first kick us off. They had both ranked at the 0.7 and or higher. And also things, they had broken them by short-term, medium-term, and long-term action items. So we said, let's take those short terms, 0.5 or higher, and let's start to work on those and implement those. So we've looked at them, and the first one is action item E6, and that is to identify businesses and people who have done renewable energy sources and to create a video. So this would partner and expand upon the A2, the urbandale.org/green. It's a way to showcase and to say these are the next steps, and these are people who have done it, and this is what they've learned from it, and this is how it's benefited them moving forward. Economic development and the Chamber of Commerce will be our potential partners here to make sure we find those right key people to talk to. And then economic development and marketing and comms, Derek and Anna again will actually do the video shooting and put it together. They all have the space and the capacity to do this work between now and December, so they have stepped up and said, yeah, let's find a couple and let's start us off. We may only have one or two, and then we would look to expand upon that throughout 2026 as we get more of them moving forward. We wanted to come with a second action to work on also across this time, and to really try to look at what are ways that we can implement and grow local flora and fauna here in Urbandale. Worked with the Parks and Rec Department. They have done a number of pollinator gardens in late 2024, a few of them here in 2025, and really said, how can we take that and make a plan that we can look and expand the local flora and fauna moving forward. So Parks and Rec has stepped up. Definitely this action would be with volunteers and Boy Scouts. Definitely ways that they could help and implement this. And so this would take a little bit longer. So this would not be between now and the end of the year, but would actually probably run into the spring of 2026, not just to make the plan, but then also take one and or two of those sites and actually build them out with some Boy Scout help. Scott Hoke from Parks and Rec has said that they've had several Boy Scouts come and ask about things like this. So this might be a great way for once we plan it out to come back to them and say, hey, here's a chance for you to implement a pollinated indoor garden or some other flora and or fauna space out there. We're going to stop at 2. I think 2 is a good working point at this point moving forward. We have 1 done, 1 almost done, and we can put another 2 out there. So G2, that's the native plants by the end of December. E6, the videos, again, by the end of December 2025. G3, local flora and fauna, that would push into May. And then the hope is that we would be back before you in January, February-ish to say, okay, we've accomplished G2 and E6. What are some other ways that we can move forward? Really, too, we would love to hear from council. What are the ones that you would like us to work on? What are things that you may hear from? And definitely help us with that direction. There is 60, 70 different actions to work on. We're trying to hit those top ones. What I'll do after this is I'll send out the recommendation pages from the back of the SUAP that are the short terms above 0.5, so that way we can help narrow that down and say these are things that we could potentially look at moving forward.
John, what is your timeline? When would you like to have recommendations back?
You know, I would say before we come back to you in probably December-ish. It usually takes a month or 2 to work with staff. Is this viable? What are places that we could partner? What do we need to learn to kind of put a nice proposal back and things that we believe that we can accomplish? Or to get back to you and say, you know what, that one may have a lot of roadblocks. Can we work on that and bring something else forward at the same time?
So earlier the better, but no later than December.
Earlier, yes, that would be wonderful, Amy. Thank you. So really, any questions or discussion on the SUAP and where we are kind of at this point moving forward?
John, I just really appreciate this update. I think these sorts of updates on the many things that we have in our plans are very helpful to council to keep us moving forward. So I appreciate the update.
Thank you,
Thank
Bridget.
you.
You're welcome.
I think one of the things that I would be curious about with the website, I've been hearing really great things about it, and I don't know the numbers for like the rain barrel usage or the rain barrel grant stuff, the stormwater grant stuff. I've been seeing a lot of rain barrel reimbursements in the bills docs. And so I'd be curious if kind of year over year, is there more leverage of those resources potentially due in part to some of our better and more comprehensive communication strategies?
No, definitely. I can make sure to get you the current numbers, what they were last year, and then we can definitely track those moving forward. I also forgot to say, as I looked at my last slide here, that I did try to come up with one of your strategic council plan goals was for the SUAP was to create a website where people could come and find out what has been done specifically to the plan, which is different than the hub. I think the hub is much more here's what you can do and how you can do it. This is more of the report. So we have gone back through and taken those that we've accomplished or are working on, and you can find that at urbandale.org under the How Do I and the Learn About section. And so it doesn't have every action item, it just has those that we're working on. I think when we did the Lunch and Learn initially, I think everyone was surprised, even myself, of the number of things that we had in place or were doing that we were doing naturally. And so this is another way to kind of bring those forward and to spotlight those. It's not as pretty as Derek's urbandale.org green, so please,
You said that was which page? That was on the
It's
Learn
under
About?
the main homepage under the How Do I and the Learn About, and then there's the Sustainable Urbandale Action Plan. I can send you the short link to that too.
Sounds good. Thank you.
For John on this then. All right, thank you, John.
Thank you, Mayor.
And then we'll move on to item 8.2, which is the solar feasibility study. Are you tackling that too? Or
I
who's gonna-
believe so, yes. I am teeing it up for you.
All
How about
right.
that? So, I'm gonna get my notes here really quick. So we have Sam and Andy from Queston are here tonight, I believe so, right?
Yes.
Yes. So they are here to give us a brief overview. Hired them to do a feasibility study for solar for 6 facilities that we currently operate here. They will go through and kind of show you where they came up with their review, analysis, and then wrap it up. And then I believe staff will have a presentation after that of kind of where to go next. So,
All right.
floor is yours.
Thanks, John.
It should just scroll.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so thanks for having me. My name is Sam Miller. I'm a senior consultant with QSTN. We're a sustainability and energy solutions firm based in Des Moines, and my colleague Andy Porn is with me tonight. So thanks for having us. We're excited to discuss and present the findings of this important project for the city. As was mentioned, we were retained to complete and provide an in-depth solar feasibility study for the city. The scope of that study was focused on providing an assessment of the technical feasibility, economic viability, and associated options and considerations for solar installations at 6 different city-owned buildings. Those include City Hall, the library, Fire Station 42, the police station, the rec hub, and then satellite storage facilities. The approach for assessing the solar feasibility at each of these sites covered several tasks. I'll just run through a few of them quick and then start to share some of the findings. But the study itself included meetings and discussions with staff, of a review of existing energy usage and costs at these facilities, site visits to assess facility conditions, including roof and electrical infrastructure. We built conceptual PV system designs, put together cost estimates for constructing the solar PV systems, ran energy and cost models, did structural and roof analysis, completed financial analysis, and then also a risk assessment for the projects. See if I can. So the slides that I have prepared for tonight are, we'll talk briefly about design objectives, a summary of the designs that we put together, some key findings. There's images of each site and the, at least one conceptual design, summary of costs and financials, as well as financial returns, statement of assumptions that we used in the analysis, some risks, and then a timeline for implementation that would be typical for solar projects. So the design objectives, thinking about a solar system that would be installed at a facility. As we worked with city staff, the objectives for the systems were to maximize the energy offset, or the amount of energy generated by the solar, provide a responsible financial investment, demonstrate the viability of a system at these sites, and then consider multiple options. And we also noted that there's the sustainability action plan that was just discussed. There's numerous mentions in there about use of renewable energy by the city as a priority. For each site, I mentioned we looked at a couple different designs. In general, the 2 designs, Design 1 and Design 2, for each of the 6 different sites. Design 1 basically is we sought to maximize the available roof space. Rooftop solar is more cost effective. The larger you can go, the more economies of scale you're able to achieve. So generally, Design 1 is maximizing the available roof space at each building. Design 2 then is as an alternate or addition to the roof space, taking advantage of available ground mounts and or carports at each site. So you can see the size of the systems here for each of the different sites, as well as the energy offset, which is a percentage of the site energy usage. That would be offset by the solar array.
Can I ask a quick question? The police station, are you referring to the existing police station?
The existing police station, yes.
Okay, thank you.
In terms of finding or feasibility overview, so you can see, I guess I'll run through each of these. One of the kind of like top level findings is that grid connected or grid tied on-site behind the meter interconnected solar system was, there's a feasible design available at each site. Those designs, a significant percentage of the energy use is available at each site. Some of the sites would require a ground mount or carport to reach a significant offset. Generally speaking, installation of a solar system at a site takes between 6 to 12 months in terms of development and construction timeline. If you were to start on any of these today, you may be able to go as fast as 6 months and have permission to operate. It may be more on the 12-month timeline, but that's kind of typical. Ongoing operation and maintenance of the systems was not found or considered to be a significant burden going forward. One of the key aspects of doing on-site solar is understanding the utility consumption and the interconnection and net metering provisions offered. Mid-American Energy is the utility that serves these buildings. They offer a full retail net metering, which is advantageous for doing solar. That means that the amount of energy that is backfed or pushed back onto the grid when the facility is not able to use all of the energy the rooftop solar is generating, you're compensated at the same rate. So that makes the economics more favorable. And they also have rate switching, which makes it more favorable as well. So Mid-American is a good partner actually for on-site solar right now. We also looked at power purchase agreements as a different option for procuring the solar. A PPA basically means that you're buying the energy production off the system rather than a large upfront capital spend where you then own the system. We found that the PPA rate would be higher than what your rate of purchase is from Mid-American, which makes it not really attractive for these facilities. So PPA is not really a great option here. The federal investment tax credit is available to as a direct pay for the city to take advantage of. There's been a lot of, if you track renewable energy and federal legislation, there's been a lot of activity this summer that has made securing these tax credits more complicated, but they are still available. And I would say the sooner you are to start construction and finish construction, the less complicated the new bill is in terms of renewable energy. And then we also looked at battery storage systems and found that for these sites, they were not really economical for these sites. When we consider battery energy storage in addition to solar, basically the two main benefits from a battery are additional cost savings because you're able to store and then use that energy or use it to manage the demand for the facility. And the second main benefit is resiliency or backup power. And both of those two benefits are minimized at these 6 sites. Effectively, the solar offsets most of your utility costs already, and Mid-American's favorable provisions allow for a significant percentage of the bill to be offset. So that value stream's not really available from a battery. And then these sites also have backup generators, which kind of reduces that second benefit as well. So a battery, we did look at batteries for all of them. I believe it was at one site that there's potentially, at the fire station, there may be that generator up for upgrade or replacement. A battery system could be incorporated to create like a mini grid system there, which would be potentially a viable option with additional analysis and design, really. We did note or run into several considerations or limitations that you would want to be aware of and manage these as you would implement a system at these sites. The first is facility modifications. So aside from City Hall, each of the other 5 sites all had some sort of modification that is planned or being considered. The library with a new roof, fire station renovations, police station, possible renovations or repurpose. The rec hub has renovations planned or change of use, and the storage had possible expansion. So to the extent possible, like those revisions would want to be implemented before you do solar or in conjunction with solar. Also noted, City Hall, the size of the existing transformer is a limiting factor on how large you can go with solar. So we did modify our design down in order to get below that transformer size rather than having to incur additional capital expense to upgrade or increase the size of the transformer. The existing roofs at fire station and police station are midlife, which don't make them ideal for solar. It would be, the more ideal situation is to do solar on a new re-roof or a roof that's has the majority of its remaining life. So those places you'd want to either re-roof or consider ground mount. Police station also had structural limitations that's noted in the report. You'd want to stay away from those areas. And then at the fire station, we also found that there's ground space limitations that limited the amount of solar we could put on the available ground there. The next few slides are just really just images of the Design 2 option at each site, which maximizes the amount of solar available and kind of pushes it more towards that close to 100% offset. And you'll see on quite a few of these that the carport or ground array is pretty significant in size.
For the carport options, how does that get installed? Like, is it like specifically just pillars per stall, or is it some sort of like larger structure that maybe doesn't get in the parking spaces so much?
Yeah, you wouldn't be giving up very many parking spaces. There are pillars, there are prefabbed parking canopy structures that can be purchased and installed. Carport arrays are also sometimes custom built to fit around specific requirements. Our conceptual designs didn't get too far down into those details, other than knowing the designs that we've presented are technically viable.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yep.
So here's City Hall. Library, again, majority of the roof, as well as carports. Fire station design, Design 2 was taking advantage of the ground space to avoid the midlife roof. Police station showing both roof and carport. And this design also avoided the structural limitation there. This is the rec hub at increased energy usage for upcoming renovations, and then the storage facilities ground mount. In terms of cost, this table shows the fully installed cost for the Design 2. Design 1 costs and associated information are all available in the report. You can see there's a large amount of incentives available. This includes that federal tax credit. This table also shows the annual bill savings, that bill offset, which is approaching 100%. So the majority of your utility bill would go away at these designs, and then lifetime savings from the system, assuming a 25-year system life, which is pretty industry standard assumption.
With that 25-year life, what needs to be replaced at that 25-year point?
Yeah, so good question. The lifetime savings that we've shown here include annual maintenance costs every year. So we've made assumptions on what annual expense you'd have. And then we also included the cost for inverters that typically have a failure or an assumed lifetime around 12 to 15 years. So we've factored in replacing those at 12 or 15 years. And then depending on how things go in the future, those inverters would maybe need to be replaced again near year 25. But aside from that, the costs at year 25, the solar cells and the solar panels themselves will likely still operate and be fairly efficient in their energy generation. Their production curve does taper off some, maybe 0.5% per year. That's built into our energy model, and they're warranted at that level of production. The modules are warranted for 25 years, so you wouldn't have any cost for modules prior to that. Does that answer your question?
It does. At that 25-year, then do you pay for, oh my gosh, I'm
Removal and
blanking on
disposal?
disposal. Thank you.
Yeah, I would actually guess that at 25 years, you leave them to continue to generate. At that point, they're paid for. As long as you're not running into problems structurally or otherwise, they may continue to generate power for another 5, 10, 15 years. I think the quality continues to improve a lot on solar equipment. And so like the panels that are going up now, I don't know, we assume a 25-year life. I think that they could be much longer.
Sure. Great, thank you.
When you're looking at this table, like we've got the installed cost and then the installed cost after incentives. So I'm just looking here at the after incentives.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got lifetime savings. So is that like, what in your experience do you say like this is the criteria, like this is the formula, right? To say whether this is how we've designed it here as a worthwhile project versus this one is like, you're gonna get savings, but not more than what you spent type of situation. Like, what does that look like to you?
Yeah, so I advance to the next slide. I would probably look here.
Okay.
And I guess I would also say that the owner's preferences and criteria, trump whatever I would say. There are owners that are motivated by carbon reductions versus operating costs or lifetime savings, or energy independence. So different value streams, right? But on this slide, so this shows simple payback. I think it's tough to justify a project that doesn't pay for itself within its own lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So anything less than 25 years meets that criteria. I also think the net present value, so this is net present value of those lifetime savings, so roll the dollars back to today's dollar. That's what's shown here in net present value. If those were negative, meaning like the cost of money of all of the cost savings over time, if this was negative, I would say that's a tough project to justify also. That's not the case for these designs, is there's a positive net present value. And then the two columns off on the right, I think are applicable also. So LCOE is levelized cost of energy. And this basically compares the over the life of the system, assuming different discount rates and escalation rates, what is the unit cost of the energy you're purchasing? The first column is for the utility and the second column is for solar. And so you can see you're paying slightly more for the utility provided electricity than you would be to invest today and then have, you know, low to zero annual costs over the next 25 years for energy. The effective rate is shown there. So, you know, by putting up solar, you're basically beating what you can purchase from the utility. That's how I would answer your question.
Yeah. No, that's a very good answer. Thank you.
Okay, so we kind of talked through this slide already. This was the some of the financial return analysis that we provided. I list a lot of the assumptions that we made. There's a lot of assumptions to be made when you're talking about a system over the next 25 years. They're all documented here. I would say we tended to be a bit more conservative on our assumptions in terms of performance degradation, the escalation rates, wanting to provide, you know, not worst case scenario, but more conservative scenario that you should do better than what we showed with solar. There's a number of risks laid out in the full report. We pulled out these three as maybe the most significant. I spoke earlier about the Mid-American net metering provisions. The Iowa utility law and the tariff that has been approved for Mid-American, those favorable net metering provisions are in place now and until July of 2027. And then the utilities can petition or file a new rate case with the Iowa Utility Board that may change their net metering provisions. It can happen before that if like the percentage of solar in the state exceeds some amount. So it could happen earlier. This is a risk point because if that net metering provision changes, it would change the economics of the energy, of the cost of the energy that is being offset, and make it presumably less favorable for the owner.
Once you have your units, can our net metering costs change?
You would be,
It's set in,
yeah,
grandfathered in.
you would be
at that
locked in.
point.
Is that a 20-year? It's a 20-year agreement with Mid-American.
And is that specific to when certain panels come online? So like if we stair-stepped into this, did it in one location, that like say in 26,
Right.
all
So
the others would have their own individual.
as part of the project, you will submit an interconnect application to Mid-American. Part of their approval is you will sign this contract with them for the net metering rate. So that would be specific to that system as you interconnect to the grid.
Got it. Cool, thank you.
The second one we made note of here is uncertainty around the federal investment tax credit. We could spend the next hour talking about this. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of complexity. Long story short, the sooner you start a project, the less complicated the requirements are of the project to obtain the tax credit. And eventually, they're scheduled to sunset. So there's a milestone that's end of this year, that if you start a project, that would put you kind of in one track. There's a milestone July of next year that it would put you in another track. If you start the project after July of next year, you have until 2028 to finish the project. So you have a little bit of runway, But what I would advise is if you're interested and serious about doing a project, the earlier the better. And then the last one is, like we talked about, all of upgrades, revisions, replacements to facilities. Like I had mentioned, you would want to have as much kind of stability in the energy usage at that facility and the facility itself, certainty around that before you implemented solar, because it's, like we were looking at, these projects have a longer payback that you wouldn't see your return until 14, 15, 17 years out. So you'd want to take care of that in advance. And then I won't spend a lot of time on this. This just kind of lays out the typical development and installation timeline from where you are today, which is we've completed a pretty thorough assessment of facilities with a lot of direction on the design that you could implement there. And with that, I could take any other questions you have.
David, this might be a question more for the city. Some of the discussion about the battery backup you were saying with 42 was you could kind of do a microgrid and do some sort of island mode to a certain extent. What level of priority do you feel like from a public safety perspective would having a facility be able to run in island mode?
Yeah, we can address that. I think we've got a couple of staff slides, and wanted to give the consultancy opportunity to present their findings, so we can certainly get that question answered as part of this. But I think kind of hearing the whole presentation might be useful to the council in terms of you might have more questions than you do right now. So.
And is this something that we would, like projects of these size, is this something that we would CIP project for?
It is, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, and before I go into kind of the next steps, which I'll talk about some of the key considerations that went into the specific recommendations and then the specific recommendations themselves, I want to thank the consultants, Sam and his team at QSTN. I thought, just without belaboring the point, I think the equanimity with which he discussed the changes to the tax credits was very impressive. I mean, I don't think that maybe they had their finger on the pulse of that, but I think what happened in the BBB was quite different than maybe what a lot of folks were expecting in terms of that. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the financial aspect. So I want to be clear, they did an excellent job. I've heard from lots of folks who've reviewed this who really have high praise for their project. I am one of those people, but it's there's some very key things that happened in the course of doing their work that can't be overlooked. So I thought it might be helpful to the council to kind of hear some of the things that we were discussing and baking into this before we came to the conclusions we did. I think the big one for me is, we have to acknowledge the accelerated sunsetting of the investment tax credits as a material change to the financial return on investment of solar. I mean, just the idea that, you can rush and you could try to start something to get in the queue. That's not, from my experience, just on its face, that's not when the best decision making is made, is when you're trying to rush to get something in. But I think that's very important. We have to acknowledge, I think, that retrofitting existing facilities on average, and the consultants address this, tends to be more challenging than considering solar installation on new construction. And so that weighed we kept discussing this, not just me, not just trying to be bean counter, not trying to, say, no, we can't afford to do things. It really kept coming back to, retrofitting versus the things that we have ahead of us as a city. And so we know that we have several upcoming public facility projects where energy efficiency will be a priority, and solar can be at least contemplated as part of that. And so I'll talk a little bit more about it, but certainly energy efficiency as a goal, the reduction in carbon, that all of those things can be weighed in, with solar being a piece of that. And in my opinion, with the new facilities that we have, I think it makes more sense to focus on that specifically. So I think we also need to acknowledge that, and we've had these conversations before, that return on investment absolutely can be measured in financial and non-pecuniary terms. And I think staff are really working on that. Like, how do we move these things forward to make meaningful change? We are under increasing pressure financially, and I think that from a capital investment standpoint, that weighed on our collective minds. It certainly weighed on my mind. Like, what level of capital investment should be contemplated, and how differently do we view capital investment, knowing that we have the fiscal pressure from the legislature. We know that there's more coming, where that came from. We know that we have a police headquarters. We know that we have fire station to relocate. We know that we have amenities out west that we want to get to. And so, our capital plans are going to be robust with or without solar, I guess, is part of my message. And then lastly, I think we should strive, for making those capital investments in ways that check as many of the boxes as possible and move multiple council goals forward. So that was the thing we kept challenging ourselves, is irrespective of where we land on solar, like, how does this flush out compared to some of the other things that we need to do, we know we need to do, and frankly are already in the plan, and how do we move those goals forward, whether it's this versus something else. So specific recommendations, we really tried to look at all of the goals and all of the plans. And so the question that we asked, and I asked, is the best strategy for moving the needle on these goals really related to investing capital in retrofitting roofs and installing new solar at existing facilities? I don't believe that's the right move for us at this time. I don't. I think the study was important. I'm glad we did it. It's a great tool in the toolbox. And I'll talk a little bit about how it could come into play in other ways. But I don't believe sitting here today that that's the right move for Urbandale. I think there are legitimate ways that we can achieve the goals, and we'll talk a little bit about a couple of those ideas. I don't want to freelance off on every idea, but I do want to talk specifically about a couple things real quickly. Recommendations-wise, I think we prioritize new construction. Doesn't mean we decide today or we decide soon that we're doing solar in these new facilities. But I do believe that it means, we're partnering with Mid-Am on our new facilities. Our consultants and our architects, will be seriously reviewing opportunities. And we're making these generational investments, $6 million project, $30, $40+ million projects. There are unique opportunities to look at, and I won't just say solar, but to look at energy efficiency and to look at, advancing that goal in unique ways. And quick example is, we know that, any of us that have bid a number of capital projects over the years, big facilities, sometimes it can be effective to include an ad alternate for something that you might do, but you might not do. And it's shocking to me sometimes when you're doing especially a huge project, a very high-end project, there are times where the bids come in and it just doesn't make any sense, but yet it works in your favor. Now, it can go the other way too. You can be trying to, add a doorknob to a door and it's $25,000 or something strange. But when you really look at the big projects that we have coming up, I think there's ways to look at energy efficiency and really try to move the needle with those projects. And I think that's where the energy, and if there is money to be spent, I think that could make sense through that bidding environment. And then number two is I think the focus is on the broader goal of making the impact, as opposed to just solar. And we have a solar project. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute that we've done, and I want to acknowledge that. But there are ways to, I think, that can really move the needle on the council's goals in this area. It's just different from solar. And one of the examples, and I know I've shared this previously, but we have a real opportunity to look at a partnership that addresses our what we right now is our Metro Home Improvement program that we have, that we're part of the Metro. And we have a backlog of existing homeowners. These are all homeowner occupied improvements. That in those projects, that's not necessarily marketed as an energy efficiency program necessarily. But many of those projects end up being energy efficiency projects. And many of these homes are in the downtown area, which the council has a goal around. We're trying to reinvigorate the downtown area. There are typically income restrictions on these programs, so there's an affordable housing component to it. There is I would say, a human services component to this program. And there could be a partnership, whether it's one city or a couple of cities, looking for outside funding. I have talked to Mid-Am specifically about this. I think they would be a partner in this with us to really address that need more quickly, more efficiently. And frankly, it just checks a lot of boxes. And so, yeah, you can reduce the carbon emissions, improve the housing stock, potentially keeping seniors in their homes. And so those are the kinds of, opportunity cost things that I would encourage the council to really consider. I would love to turn myself and the staff loose to really build something up on that and address that and make that incremental improvement. And I think that could really pay dividends. The third recommendation is to stay engaged with the changes in policy and/or technological advances regarding, particularly solar, but environmental as a whole, as the new opportunities may emerge. Our staff are very engaged in this, and I think we need to stay engaged. I mean, administrations change. Things that the government, incents today, they might not in a year. Things that they believed 6 months ago are different tomorrow. I mean, that's just everything we've seen. And so I think that, the financial component, there should be one. There should be a stronger financial consideration. And that could happen again. I don't know that that's a foregone conclusion that that doesn't, come back into play. And then technology, things could get significantly more cost effective. The size of, all of those things happen, and we know they do. So this isn't a forever thing, but I think just based on all the criteria, I think that's important to keep an eye on that and make sure that we're on top of things so that if there's an opportunity, we can swoop in and do it. And then the last recommendation is, it's a smaller one, but we have an existing solar project that we've invested heavily in. And I think we really want to monitor that both operationally and financially. And I think that data, as it comes in over time, will help us. Now, the tax credits that we have gotten and hope to get as part of that project will have to be backed out of any future consideration based on what we would expect to see happen with the accelerated removal of those. But I do think that's important. And I think our team, our marketing and communications, and our entire team can really make sure that, we do a really good job of communicating and articulating what's been done and why it's been done. And then also, we should be monitoring that to make sure that, we understand how it's performing, in my opinion, before we would necessarily launch future projects, knowing that the financial side is not nearly as favorable as it used to be. And that probably won't change, at least short term. So I do think there's there's some really cool things we can do. We can make an impact. We can move the needle. I just don't believe that investing in solar in our existing facilities at this time is the right move. And that's not purely a financial consideration. I mean, there's just a lot of other things that we want to make sure that we can move forward for the council as well. So.
One of the things, Dave, I
So
think,
to,
go ahead, Bridget.
so to clarify, in our working with our buyer's agent, I can't remember the name that we have for her, but we are including solar as an alternate in what we're going to be going out with for the police station.
We haven't, and you're speaking about Angie Fanku, who's
Yes,
our
yes.
owner's representative. We haven't gotten
Owner's
to we're in the process, they're in the process of putting together the RFP for the architect. We're not quite to the point where the answer to that question is yes, Bridget, but I think clearly, the expectation with the new project is we're going to examine other, all sorts of opportunities to make the building energy efficient. And then my comment about the ad alternate is just from my experience that sometimes, well, first of all, in building a new building, that's a really reasonable time to contemplate solar. And it would still likely be a significant capital investment. I mean, it would still significantly would be a large amount of money. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I would want to guarantee anybody that you would be comfortable moving forward or that staff would be comfortable recommending moving forward. But yes, we are absolutely committed to looking at all sorts of environmental stewardship as part of that project and any new project. And that would be expected, particularly for the police station.
Okay, I guess I want to I think the council would very much like to have that be concluded as, an alternate in the bidding. I mean, we're not there yet, but I think we need to know what the costs look like, in a bidding environment for this.
Right.
I think I'm very disappointed that, I understand why you're recommending what you're recommending, but I'm still very disappointed in the fact that you're recommending it. And so I think, and being around, a while when we, went back and retrofitted the Public Works building, I want to be able to make that decision.
No,
and
certainly
weigh the
as we
cost
work
benefits
through the design of the building, and not just solar, but a variety of other energy efficiency investments and outcomes. That was absolutely the expectation, Bridget, is that we would look at that.
Okay, thank you.
I think for me, what would be really helpful is to be able to put the timeline of the repair of the build out, similar to like what's in table 3.2, with the return on investment charts that are located way back in the report. Just so we can see visually side by side, okay, this is what we have going on. This is where we see the ROI and how those align with potential build out and the timeline. So if we have a roof that needs replaced in 1 to 2 years, maybe that's something we consider in 1 to 2 years. And we can look visually, okay, what is that, theoretically gonna get us? So we can make an informed decision without going back and forth between two very widely dispersed tables.
Charts.
Yeah. And I mean, I understand, I've done solar. I put solar on a 1908 building, so I've been there. I think it is important to think about timing. New construction makes a lot of sense. You have to have a functional roof. I mean, there are some things that you have to take under consideration. And maybe at the time, it won't make sense based on the dynamics that are occurring. But I think it's something we still have to keep at the forefront. And I do think that's a separate conversation than the Metro Home Improvement Program. I think those are two separate conversations. So that's kind of where I'm landing on this right at the moment.
Yeah, and my only reason to mention that is just the level of investment of a small retrofit solar project, you know, could really address the same capital investment could really address the backlog. It's an opportunity cost is what I'm looking at.
I would like to learn more about that backlog because I do not recall any data that we've been provided recently.
Right.
And maybe I'm just forgetting something.
There's
which
about
is
10 homeowners
very
that are
possible.
waiting on funding.
Okay. So, and that's an individual approach for a homeowner versus what is our city approach.
Right.
So,
I think the things that are, and I asked about this with the payoff and kind of the like lifetime savings too. Mid-American generally, you know, based on other utility providers, probably has a better mix of non-renewable versus renewable power coverage. And so I think that's something that is worth keeping in mind too, is
Oh, absolutely.
if there is, you know, let's say our provider mix is 70% renewable, 30% non-renewable for the year, right? You know, then we have our own system that would put us at, you know, whatever, 95, 100% or whatever. That's just something we need to keep in mind is like, is going that extra bit a good financial investment? Or like David, I agree with you with kind of thinking about these new projects. You know, you've got things like LEED certification that provides a lot of benefits in terms of reducing usage, and so that you're not needing to backfill against what you are already going to use anyway. I do think we need to keep this on hand just in case there's a change in like financial environment, a change in like, yeah, we put a roof in, or we're about to put a roof in, and we're thinking, you know what, maybe like a half array or something makes more sense, or, you know, what does that look like? I just don't think that it's something we want to put in a drawer and lose.
No.
But we kind of want to keep it in mind at least.
and it's table 6.2 and 3.2 that I think makes sense to pull together.
I don't think we put this in a drawer at all, Blake. I think,
Right.
this is, you know, as David said, I think this is a good exercise. I think this gives us
Yeah.
some data points, and something we can use moving forward as we do future construction projects.
That's all I had tonight.
Okay.
Sorry to depress you, Bridget. Wasn't my intent.
Just ruined the rest of the conference for her.
She'll have to go find another dog to pet. I think, so.
That was just yesterday. I
Oh.
could have used one today, so.
What was that?
The
Oh.
dogs were just yesterday, but I could have used one today.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. All right, moving on then to city manager's report. David, anything else?
That's it. That was enough.
Mayor and council items. Amy?
Oof. Where do you begin for this week? I am going to keep my comments short related to the political violence, just reiterating what I think we all feel is political violence has no place in our community, in our nation, and I encourage people to be open to public discourse in a way that is positive for our communities and for dialogue. Certainly, there's issues that have happened in the last week. There's even more that has happened today. I've tried to remain off social in the sense of racial issues that have occurred today, racial incidences. So again, just reiterate, there's no place for it in our community. In addition, you should have all received data related to the PIT count release. So the summer PIT data was released today formally. If you want to find out any more information, please visit the Homeward website or reach out to me. Let's see, appreciate the concerns related to the bike lanes. I'm also really excited to see the increased usage of the bike lanes. Even yesterday, in a 2-block time frame, 4 different bikes, scooters, et cetera, within literally a 5-minute time frame. Just really fun to see that kind of take off. And as usual, thank you to the staff for doing such a great job on reporting and giving us updates and supporting the work that we do. It's greatly appreciated. So, and I know Bridget will talk about the DART meeting coming up next week, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'll leave that to you.
All right. Joe?
Thank you. I last week attended, as did the mayor, Karen Acres School. The 5th graders gave presentations on why Urbandale should have a public pool. And the kids were great, lots of different opinions, indoor pool versus outdoor pool, where should it be located. I didn't break the news to them that is probably not something that's on the horizon anytime soon, but it was interesting to hear their perspectives and to meet some of the teachers and administrators at the school. So I enjoyed that. I got to attend the ribbon cutting for the Urbandale Food Pantry on Friday. That was just awesome. Great event, great facility. I think everything there has been done the right way, and I'm very proud that a lot of that predates my service, obviously, although I've contributed and volunteered and whatnot. But it's just a wonderful thing that we're able to do that as a community. I want to congratulate Todd Pettit for being named Citizen of the Year, very deserving. And with regard to the political violence issue, obviously, I roundly condemn it in any of its forms. I thought the mayor had very wise words on social media. I shared those words because I couldn't have thought of any better words myself. Now, I'd like to thank our uniformed police officers who come here at every meeting and kind of watch over us. I appreciate you. I notice you, and so thank you. And that's all I've got.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Blake?
Yeah, I echo all those comments. We should be character counting. I mean,
And I apologize for not, at the whole nights, I should not have overlooked that, so.
yeah. Do have a Bravo meeting tomorrow. Some of the things that we'll be covering is, or one of the things that we'll be covering, they will be rolling out the kind of study they've done on Des Moines City Hall as kind of an option and some information about how that could be repurposed as a performing arts space. So I think that would be really interesting to get in the hands of folks and kind of see what ideas get spurred from that. I got a chance to look at the management analyst site for the new position. That is a really cool page. So pass along thanks for that. I think it gives an incredible overview and it provides a lot of energy for people looking at that. Yeah. I know of 2 people specifically that have actually applied for the position. I'm sure there are others, but that just tells me that there's energy and excitement around it. So I'm excited to see that move forward.
I'm going to say about that, Blake, is
Yeah.
we have really creative people who work in the city of Urbandale. I am not responsible for what that page looked like. I read through that and I thought, I've got to apply for that job. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. So I'll pass it along.
Excellent. I signed up to go to Sample Urbandale. I'm assuming various other folks have as well.
Yeah, we
That's
should
so-
mention that. We do have tickets through the city, so if you want to go. What, did you pay?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
shoot.
shoot.
Uh,
Oh, shoot.
'Cause we have tickets as a sponsor for the chamber, I think. Don't we, Nicole, do you know?
Usually.
I think we do.
It's September 25.
It's September 25th, yeah.
So we should
Tiffany and I
have,
discussed that this morning, actually.
I don't know how many we get as part of our, I think we do. I don't know.
I will say I've attended every year I've been on the council and have never paid to attend, so I believe that we have tickets.
Can we, Nicole will check and get an email out.
And I will not be there, so there will be at least one additional.
And I will be there, obviously, making the presentation and also introducing Todd Pettit since I was able to nominate him, so.
Excellent. And then last thing, just thanking staff for great updates, both tonight and the construction update that was last week. That was incredibly helpful. It brought a lot of perspective to the different things that we're working on for various priorities of council. I think especially when it comes to stormwater, it really was nice to see these are all the different areas where we're attacking stormwater and different projects that incorporate that into it and how are we trying to keep on it. And so I really appreciated that. That's all I got.
Thanks. All right. Bridget?
Greetings from Boston. It's been a great conference. I'll be heading home tomorrow, but as Amy indicated, there is a public meeting to discuss Reimagine DART next Tuesday, the 22nd, from 5 to 6 o'clock at the Urbandale Public Library. There are also several other meetings throughout the metro between tomorrow night and the end of the month. And there's also a virtual meeting on next Thursday.
On Wednesday.
No, I'm sorry. The meeting is Monday night next week, the 22nd, from 5 to 6. And then Wednesday, the 24th, would be the virtual meeting from 5:30 to 6:30. So I hope interested and impacted residents, as well as the council, if interested, can attend one of those meetings, either the one at the library or the virtual meeting.
And then we have a follow-up meeting on that Thursday, right, with I think, just internally.
Yes, yes. So the process is moving along well. We've received a number of responses in our meetings, the public meetings that have been held, and the online survey, and we're seeing about the same sort of response with about 40% of the respondents at this point indicating that they're satisfied with the new plan, and then smaller number indicating that they don't have an opinion either way. And so if you take both of those together, a majority of the respondents are, positive to neutral on the changes. So, but we just need to keep getting feedback from all over the metro. So I would appreciate anything you can do on your individual social medias and in discussions with folks to get them to fill out the survey and or attend meetings. Everybody has brought up a lot of great points in their comments this evening. So I won't be redundant as I normally am, but I did just want to say that I really enjoyed being able to attend the ribbon cutting for the food pantry on Friday. It's a project that I am so proud that we were able to, really be the lead partner in making that happen as the city of Urbandale. And the picture of the ribbon cutting with Derek jumping for joy really encapsulates to me, kind of what that project means to our community. So thank you to everyone, city staff, community members, food pantry staff, all the folks that have donated. We still have a little bit ways to go to meet our goal, but we've done amazing. So thank you to everyone for that. That's all.
All right, thanks, Bridget. Yeah, that was a great picture. I think Derek obviously had the top reaction, but I think if you looked at everybody in that picture to a person, I think that was a brilliant capture by the photographer of just that perfect moment. So that was a great photo for that. I echo everything else is said. Actually, I just want to point out too, I've been planning this for a while, but I was invited to attend a civility summit in Carmel, Indiana next weekend. So that's been on my calendar for 2 months, but I think it's all the more timely right now that at first I thought it was called Project Civility, but then I listened to a video and they also said Project Civility. So it's a double entendre, Project Civility, but Project Civility as well. So it's actually organized, but the city of Carmel has really embraced civility, I think, much in the way that we have as well, and the character counts. And they've actually established a nonprofit organization there. And actually, one of the council members that's the lead on it is an Urbandale native, graduated from Urbandale High School in 1977. So, in any event, I'll be bringing back, hopefully some other ideas and thoughts from that after I attend that next week. Also, in addition to what everybody else has said already, Aaron Freeman was the host for the IA Pelra organization here last week. A lot of great folks come in from all over the state. I had a chance to speak to them. Character counts came up during those topics, and they were at the Giovanetti shelter and actually saw the 6 pillars right outside. So that was a great discussion with them. And today, just right behind me, if you can say, I was at the Urbandale High School. They invited me to speak to the senior. IJAG, but it stands for Jobs.
Iowa Jobs for America's Graduates.
Yeah, I wanted to say Jobs after graduation, but Jobs for America's Graduates. So, great class, and they had a discussion for 45 minutes on not just career topics, but just life topics, which I thought was great. And they had a lot of great questions, and they had a lot of great discussions. So I really enjoyed doing that. And one of the students said she drew this, especially for me, she drew it freehand without any stencils or anything else. So Kaylee Baker. So Kaylee, I want to give you a shout out. I told her I would bring it here and highlight it tonight at the council meeting. So that's all I have. So unless there's anything else, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.